Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jagridi. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How was your day so far?
It's been good. It's been good. Just came back from taking my dog for a walk.
No,
You know,
that's
living
great.
the dream, the huge.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting. I just wanted to do this interview with you so that I can remember this internship in the future and also learn more about how the company came to be in the first place. And there will be some like technical questions about the company itself, but this interview is more about getting to know you as a person. So there will be a lot of opinions and other types of questions as well.
Okay.
All right. So my first question for you is, we've all seen that space exploration is a very, very difficult field. We often hear about in the news that a rocket crashed and, a lot of payload has been destroyed. And so we know that it's very, very risky. So despite all the risks, what makes space exploration and doing space worth the risk for you?
For me, so there's a few things. The first is, as far as we know, this is the only planet that's got life on it. And so far, we seem to be alone in the universe. And there's a lot of reasons that's probably true. These are the this is the problem of the great silence, right? Anyway, we need to go to space because life is so rare. Anything could destroy life on Earth, and it would be an absolute tragedy if life on Earth did get destroyed. It seems to be so unique in the universe. Like, the reason why it's worth the risk is because we need to spread life to other planets. We need to move to other planets too, because we're not doing good things for the life here.
Mhm.
But also, if life is going to survive, we need to spread that. We need to spread life. Maybe that's the reason why humans evolved. Get past the big barrier of the sky. I think the other reason, though, is because of how much it improves the lives of people and other life on Earth. There's a lot of technology that came out of the space race. There's a lot of, it's no coincidence that I think it's Earth Day that was started around the same year that an astronaut first looked down on Earth. There's a lot that we can learn about how to manage life on Earth by looking at other planets. You go and you look at Venus, you see what happens when you don't take care of your greenhouse gases. Like, you can imagine it raining metal on Earth one day because we screwed up how the greenhouse gas cycle here on Earth works. There's a lot of really good reasons to go to space, but to me, those are the top two. From a human perspective, exploration is really important. That's part of I feel like that's a key part of human, I suppose, the human psyche, or part of our blood.
Mhm.
We need to go and explore and see things. I think it's primarily, for me, the first two, though. We got to spread life to other planets, to other parts of the galaxy, and we've also got to learn how to manage Earth. And the best way to do that, aside from, like, we can learn a lot about that on Earth today, don't get me wrong, but it's really hard to see all the Earth from down here. You need to go to space to do that. There's also some other really great examples of that in other parts of the solar system. Anyway, that's my answer.
No, that's great. And even though I have all the questions written here, like, I want this conversation to kind of flow. So I might just, talk about some stuff as a response and not just go through the questions. But my next question for you is, what does it really take to found a space company? And what do you think was the most important factor? Was it the timing? Was it the idea? Was it the environment, the founders? Well, what would you say it takes to found a company?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. I mean, first is, you've got to be sure you really want to do it, because you're going to come up against some really hard times, and you got to be able to get yourself through them. The best way to do that is if you're motivated enough to get out of bed in the morning, even when things are looking like their worst. You really gotta want to do what you're doing. To me, that also means doing something for a higher purpose other than, money or because it's fun. That you need to really want to do this. That's the first thing. But the team that you start it with is also really key. You have to have the right team. If you don't have the right team, you're not going to be successful. Timing is important to a certain extent, but it's hard to control that. I didn't think to myself, hey, this is the right time to found Wyvern. I got really excited about an idea that I saw for a problem in the industry, and me and my co-founders did too. We decided to start. I think the reality is that whether the timing is right for you to found a company is not going to be decided by you. It's going to be decided by external factors. I don't think the idea is necessarily the most important part. One thing I think I've learned throughout all this is that it's very rare that the idea that you have is original. Somebody else has thought of doing what you're doing before. And I think that's true across, most of it. It's not about the idea, it's about executing against it. Lots of people have the same idea, but it's the people who succeed in doing that are the ones that, get the accolades that get recognized. I mean, there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Also takes a really good
support network. Yeah. And I guess many people having the same idea is also kind of a good sign in some ways that this is something that people think is a problem. So if many people think that, then it's in a weird way, okay, other companies are also thinking about it, but the execution hasn't been done yet, kind of thing.
I don't think that's necessarily true. Sometimes it can just be a fad. Sometimes it could be, I don't know if I'm using this term correctly, but it could be a red herring. A lot of people before the .com burst thought that starting an internet company was a good idea. A lot of them failed. That was largely at the time, I think that was largely a fad. I mean, and if you look at our company, people have been trying to start a hyperspectral company for a long time. And a lot of, maybe it is a good idea. I think it's a good idea, but I haven't seen a hyperspectral company that's yet proven itself in the market. We still have to have that reckon. What do you think it takes to be a space company founder? I'm curious.
What do I think it takes to be a space company founder? I think having a technical background really helps, so that you're not just a business person with a science idea. I also think somebody that can learn things really fast, because startup seems to be the type of field that requires you to know how to do everything, or at least be able to learn how to do everything at one phase or the other. In the beginning, you'll probably be involved with the technical things, but as time goes on, your role kind of changes, and being able to adapt to that, I think. But that's just me with my non-space space company founded knowledge.
Hey, as far as I know, every space founder has started where, when I started in the space industry, I was in my second year of university. I had no idea what I was doing.
Maybe one day. So my next question is, how has being a husband affected your career, and what insight/fears do you have on work-life balance for the future?
Oh man. Well, for starters, my wife makes more money than I do, so I'm very blessed to have Patricia in my life, because without her, I think I would have been living on noodles for the last few years.
Wow.
I would say that Patricia has been one of my greatest supporters since the start. If I did not have Patricia, I probably would have been working in an apartment alone on this, and that would have been really tough for my own mental health.
Mhm.
I think that like, being a husband has been really, it's been a really positive thing in, helping me deal with all the scenarios that I've been through with Wyvern. That being said, it also means that, I do have to take time away from Wyvern to focus on my relationship, but I think that's a good thing because it also is a forcing function that helps prevent burnout a little bit. I mean, that being said, speaking to the insights/fears on work and life balance, something that I'm afraid of is that, I work so much and I take so much of myself away to give to Wyvern that it eventually destroys me, or it destroys my relationship. That's something I am very afraid of. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like having a company is like having a baby. Like it just requires attention at all times, maybe at the initial stages.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I'm really happy I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night to feed that baby, but
Yeah. So something I really wonder about is like how much of success do you believe is luck versus hard work? Or like how do you think about these things? Like, do you think luck is a huge thing, or do you think you just have to ignore it and then work really, really hard and then everything will work out? How do you think about these things?
I think that luck is probably one of the biggest unknowns. I don't think that we realize how much luck has a place in our success, but I also don't think we understand how much hard work has a place in our success. I don't know what it was like, what it's like for you growing up now, but when I was growing up, and my first introduction to the entrepreneurship world, you hear all these apocryphal myths about people succeeding, and about how raising money works or how being an entrepreneur is like, and a lot of those are exceptions, massive exceptions at school. You might hear of that one person who raised, $50 million in 2 years and then sold their company to Apple, and that's so incredibly rare. It's stupid. I mean, I think it's less than 1% of all startup companies are going to raise a seed round, and then less than of those, less than half of them are going to go on to successfully raise a Series A, and so on and so forth. The success metrics for being an entrepreneur are really, really like they're shitty, and so I think that we tend to look at the people that are out there telling us their story, and we aggrandize them. They become the myths that we grew up with. I think it's actually really dangerous to believe those myths. I think that hard work is a major. I think that hard work is a major contributor to success as an entrepreneur, because like for example with Wyvern, we've been working at this for 4 years, and it's been hard work. It's been a lot of incremental advancement and success, and that's the reality of the great majority of startups or anything. Without doing Alberta Sat when we were in school, building a student satellite, we might not have gotten to Wyvern. And back then, I wanted to start a company too. So I think hard work is a major contributor to that, but it's not going to guarantee success, because you still might lose. There's things outside of our control. We might be outcompeted. We might not have the right product. I might get hit by a meteorite. Like there's just, or more likely a bus. Yeah. Like there's just tons of things that could happen. And back to your question about luck, I actually think so. I think hard work has a lot more of a impact on our success than we tend to think. I think the same thing is for luck. At the same time, I think luck is a result of hard work. At least a good portion of luck is a result of hard work. And then there's a portion of luck that's due to factors beyond our control. For example, I have a really great success network. My father and my mother worked incredibly hard growing up to give me the life that I have. I'm very lucky. And all of us are not born or start off in an equal position, which is unfortunate, and that contributes to the success of entrepreneurship. You can see a lot of you can go and talk to some entrepreneurs who've had absolutely nothing and they work their asses off. You could talk to others who've had you know, their fathers or their mothers or their family friends put in like $1 million. Luck plays a big factor in a lot of this. Plus, there's also like all the external situations. You know, the fact that we were born in Canada and that we were raised here, you know, that gives us an advantage that people in other countries or other parts of the world might not have. And, you know, the opposite is true too. Like, we would probably be in a different position if we started Wyvern in the United States and we were American. Yeah, I think luck has a much bigger impact than people really like to believe. Luck is huge, but it's hard to quantify.
No, that's a very good answer. I personally, like, I came to a conclusion that like luck is a huge factor in success, but it's best to act as if it's not.
I think that's true because you can't control it.
Yeah. But like it is a thing, but like when you do the work, you don't act like, oh, luck is a thing almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that should really humble us all.
Yeah. Definitely. So you said like how difficult entrepreneurship is and how impossible the standards are, and these mythical stories of unicorns being born out of nothing, and that's what people aspire to be. But like you said, that's really, really rare, really, really difficult, but you still decided to start a company. So while you were making a career choice, why did you pick entrepreneurship over a full-time stable job with regular paychecks? Was it your personality type, or was it just so important, or what was it?
I wanted to build a space industry in Alberta because I wanted to have other students and other people to have that opportunity to work in the space industry, because I didn't, and neither did they. And I said, well, you know, somebody's got to do it. I may as well do it. That was the first thing. The second thing is I wanted to do something to help out the world, to help out the environment, and, you know, something with the skill set that I found myself in, which was space engineering. You know, the third thing is because I guess I've always, I guess I've always built things or like done things when I saw that there was a need for it. And that was largely influenced by my father, who strongly believed that if you can be your own boss and if you can do your own thing, you should. I guess that's why, because you're right, it is a really tough path. Those are the main reasons.
Who should like not start a company? If somebody like wants, like, why should somebody not start a company?
I don't think you should start a company to be like, I don't think you should start a company if you're doing it, if you're not doing something that you really are in love with. That, you know, I don't think you should start a company just like to try to be the next Elon Musk. I mean, don't get me wrong, like obviously we build companies to generate wealth and you know, to build a lifestyle for ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I just think that if you do it to be rich, it's probably you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. I don't think that you should start a company just so that you can identify as an entrepreneur. I think so. I suppose what I should say, the last 2 points I made, you shouldn't start a company for ego. If you're starting a company for ego, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
That's very insightful.
Yeah.
So when I first like learned about Wyvern, like something that really interested and like excited me was the fact that the really big picture of the company is we'll go multi-planetary and then use this technology in other planets. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, totally. So like one of the key visions of Wyvern is we want to be able to monitor, you know, every square meter of Earth chemically, you know, 12 feet down all the way to the top of the atmosphere. Big part of that is because we want to be able to give everybody the same picture about the current health of planet Earth. Another good reason for that, an economical one, is that if you have that data, you can optimize your resources as well as, you know, your environmental management and, you know, society. not society as in the people so much as you can balance the needs of society with the needs of the environment, with the needs of economy. You can be truly sustainable if you've got that data. But at the beginning of our conversation, I mentioned the need for life to also be multi-planetary. Well, if we're going to be multi-planetary as a species, we need to bring life with us. And if we're going to bring life with us, we've also got to implement the same systems, which means we got to put these on other planets. And if we're going to go to other planets, we got to do things like mine. We've got to do things like, build ecosystems. And that's why we need this technology on other planets too.
That's crazy. Like when I become like old and stuff, seeing like Wyvern and other planets, that would be I'll tell my grandkids that's where I interned at. Yeah, you're saying something. I don't know.
No, I just said thanks. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you're at a leadership position now, through want or need either, what leadership advice do you love both preaching and practicing?
That's a good question. I think it's really important for leaders to be humble. I think it's really important for leaders to take take responsibility when things go wrong, and to celebrate their teams when things go right. I think it's really important as a leader to, get over communicate even, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, that everybody understands, where everybody else is coming from. I think it's important to be able to take critical feedback, and to not take it personally, because, one of my biggest issues with being a leader in the past has been that, I'm kind of a big guy. I've got a loud voice. I can talk very authoritatively, and sometimes I'll say something and people would just go, yeah, okay, that's it. I'm going to do that. No problem. And I could be totally wrong. And they might even think so, but they might not tell me. So I try to encourage people to give me as much feedback as possible. I think it's very important for leaders to have that, because we just don't know. I might not know something going on at the bottom levels of my organizations, or even at the top, that is critically affecting the whole organization, the culture, the performance of the organization. And I want people to tell me, and I have no problem if it's a criticism. I think another important aspect of leadership is, making sure that as a leader, you take care of the people that you're leading, that you make sure that they put their health first, that they're well compensated, that, they don't feel like they're adversarial towards the executive team or management. I won't go as far to say that being a leader is encouraging like a family mentality in the company, because to me that implies that the employees have some sort of familial responsibility to the company, and I don't think that's actually healthy. I think it's important for executives and leaders to have a familial responsibility to employees, but not the other way around. Yeah.
No, those were great. I love your points about, I guess, like being approachable. And you definitely are that, because I approached you for this interview and you were like, yes, let's do it. And also the mental health and taking care of the employees parts, that like really stood out to me when I first came at Wyvern, and how much we care about doing well and then putting out good work at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, if you and everybody else isn't healthy, how can you do good work for Wyvern? And it would just, anyway, it would just be, I just feel like it would be so unethical to like demand somebody's like health and well-being over like just to advance Wyvern.
Yeah, no, but sometimes it's like for a startup, it wouldn't be that shocking for the employees to like spread themselves way too thin and like work really, really hard. the beginning stages. So, but Wyvern seems to be very like organized even as a startup.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yes. So my next question is, I remember in one of our previous conversations, you mentioned a lot of barriers and challenges in your life. And to me, like looking at it from an intern perspective, it just seems impossible. Like, how do you maintain that level of drive, success, and be a leader? And then you have to be like the strong one for other people. But then you have your own personal life challenges, and you mentioned a few of them. So could you talk about the personal challenges you faced, and if you have any advice on how to actually manage that without compromising your bigger purpose in life?
That's totally fair. I mean, back in 2013, I came face to face with my depression, and I'd been depressed for a long time. I just had no idea that I was, and I didn't really realize that until I attempted suicide at the time.
Oh my God.
And I went to a psychologist. I got some antidepressants. I started seeing a therapist, and I still take antidepressants to this day. I suppose like at some point in my career in university, like I was doing so much for Alberta Sat as a project manager and I wasn't like dealing with my depression very well, and I was getting sick every 2 weeks. So eventually I had to step back as a project manager and focus on, my schooling and on my health. Oh man, I went through. Before Wyvern, I was actually at another startup, and me and the team didn't we got to a point where we just weren't getting along very well, and it was very emotionally draining on all of us. And eventually we decided to part ways. And at that time I thought I was never going to start a startup again. I thought it was done for me. And I mean, there's been so many points in Wyvern where we've had to deal with some pretty strong adversity. And I'm not gonna, I won't say exactly what happened, but there have been different things like, sometimes like sometimes you would have a bit of a conflict with a team member, or you're wondering like whether or not what you're doing is whether you're making progress towards building a company, because I mean the timescales are so long, launch delays, customers, investors saying no. For example, I think in our first round, I think I ended up pitching to something like 150, 175 investors, and a lot of them said no.
Yeah.
And you got to learn to deal with that. Anyway, so like there's like last year my father passed away. That was a really defining period of my life. So definitely a lot of adversity. So I think the question is, how do you handle it, and how do you not let them define you?
Yeah. I
mean, the first thing I would say is that the challenges and the trials I've faced in my life so far, they have defined me, and to some extent anyway. But in the sense that how I handled them or how I reacted to them have defined me.
So how did you react? Like, how do you like get over or like handle it?
Oh man, that is a tough question. I think the first and the most important thing is that you've got to convince yourself, and you've got to believe that you're going to do it. That no matter what happens, no matter how big the mountain is, you're going to do it. You've got to convince yourself, and you might not even have any proof. It might be the worst day of your life, but you got to say, you know what, I'm going to handle this, and I'm going to get through it. And you will, because you're a human being, and humans are remarkably
resilient.
Exactly. They're incredibly resilient. Everybody faces something tough in their life. Everybody will face the death of somebody that's very close to them. And I mean, it helps to know that there's other people who faced far worse than I ever will. Like I said before, I'm very blessed with a lot of the things that have happened in my life. I grew up in a very supportive family. one that was able to provide for me and give me a lot of good opportunities. I have a very good support system. Some some people have gone through much worse, and they've done much more. So I think believing that you're going to get through it, that's a really, it can be a tough thing to do, but you gotta do it. It's probably the most important thing you can do. The other thing that you can do is, make sure you stop and you think about the adversity. You think about what you're going through, and you start thinking about it logically. The first thing you can do is you can say, well, what can I control and what can't I control? Because a lot of things are outside of your control. The next thing that you can do is you can start focusing on the immediate things. When we look at all this stuff, we tend to think of it as a giant mountain, and that's really paralyzing. But every single mountain you can climb it. You can climb a mountain by taking one step at a time. So just focus on the next step. The other thing the other thing I think that's really important is you've got to accept the fact that you might fail, and that's okay. That's just part of being human. God knows how many times I've freaking failed.
So being courageous.
Yeah, I would say being courageous in the, I guess, quiet courage, I suppose. Accepting the fact that you might like the advice, you might not conquer the adversity. You might have to live with it, and that's okay. Accepting that fact. I think another thing that's really helped me handle adversity is I tend to focus. I guess if I had to define it, so there's a philosophy called Stoicism, and it focuses quite a lot on conquering your own ego, accepting the things you cannot change. Being able to challenge and conquer your ego is really helpful. It'll help you get over these adversities, because if you've got a really big ego and it gets really hurt because you're confronted by failure, that's going to paralyze you. And anyway, those are some things, but
No, that was really, really helpful. Like I can't even fathom some of the things like you mentioned. And stoicism, I really also follow that sometimes. I've been through some things, and that has been really helpful. And it's like, I don't know, you stand strong as the storm is going by kind of thing. It's like ancient philosophy, so I really enjoy that.
Well, hold on a second there. It's not about standing strong and being this. It's not about being this this pillar of stone. You need to be the storm might push you. You need to be flexible. You need to be more like grass than you need to be more like a tree. And that's what, I'll say one last thing. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not be a pillar of stone, to recognize that you can't always hold everybody else on your shoulders. Yeah.
And that's a very important thing. Especially in society, sometimes men have more difficulty being vulnerable because it's just not the norm. But I'm glad to hear that you prioritize that. In hearing all of this, sometimes when I read other people's bios, like Albert Einstein or just famous people, something that I really try to look for is, are they religious or not, or if they have a belief in something bigger than themselves. And some scientists are no, complete atheists, don't need any faith or belief. So I'm curious for you, when we're talking about this whole adversity thing, do you believe in something?
By birth, I'm a Catholic. I would say I would say that I'm still a Catholic. I do believe in God, although to me, the universe and God are synonymous. They're the same thing, and that everybody in the universe is God. We're God in the same way that a wave is the ocean, but the ocean is not the wave. Yeah, at the end of the day, a key. I think it's an interesting question, because I think there's two big things that define humans. One of them is that we can socialize with, we can keep up with social groups that are about 150. And the second thing is that we can believe in things that may or may not be real and all align ourselves to that. Every single person believes in something bigger than themselves. Whether you call it God or science or the universe or money, it doesn't really matter. It's something that probably won't exist if all humans die, or at least the concept of it won't. Anyway, that's maybe a different rant. We need to go deeper.
Do you think your life would be harder if you didn't believe in something? Like, I mean, like God or like universe, whatever that is. Do you think it has created a path of like least resistance where it's like, okay, ultimately everything will be fine, or no?
Oh man.
Like, has it helped you in your path so far? Or
I mean, yeah, believing in something greater than me has helped me. At the same time, like I believe that the universe is God. At the same time, I also believe that, my life is on such a short time scale compared to the universe that what I do here doesn't really matter. But that's okay, because I can decide that it does.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter if there's physical proof that it does or does not matter. The fact is that I think it matters, and I believe that it matters. So in that sense, yes, it has helped me.
Okay, that was very meta, but yeah, we like that. So we're kind of going towards the end of the whole thing, but I just have a few more questions, and then we'll wrap things up. So my next question for you is, if you had to give a message to younger Chris, what would you tell him?
Oh boy. I would tell him that he's that he's stronger than he thinks at the time. I would tell him that I would tell him to take care of his health. I would tell him to spend more time with his dad and his family. I would probably also tell him to spend less time listening to what older people say cannot be done or can be done, and spend more time listening to his own vision, because that's what I would probably tell
him. What would you tell other young people that are not young Chris, but just whatever you've seen, like this generation seems like so far? What do you think is kind of important to know for the next generation?
Listen to your own voice. Something I've reflected on is that when I was younger and I had new ideas, I suppose one strength I always had was refusing to believe other people when they said that something couldn't be done unless they brought physical proof that it could. So happy to listen to a scientific reason or physical proof about why something cannot be achieved. But when it's other people's opinions about what can and cannot be done, like I said, unless they can back it up, then I put more credence on that. I think the older that I get, the more I feel like I can tell people what's possible and what's not, and that's bullshit, because what's possible is not something that you or I can decide. The only thing that we can decide is possible is that if there's a physical limitation to whether or not it's possible, not whether your opinion is that you think it's possible. For example, I had a lot of people tell me that I probably shouldn't start an Earth observation business because, for a variety of reasons, it's not going to be done, yada, yada, yada. Back in 2015, I remember asking somebody at a space conference about when they think we're going to start doing, when we're going to start maintaining the spacecraft we send to orbit. I remember some guy coming up to me and telling me that it's just never going to be done because of the amount of fuel that's required to make a orbital inclination change. And then, you look at all these space maintenance companies, like in-orbit service companies now. The fact is that people are going to tell you that what you're dreaming of is not possible. And unless they can give you physical proof why it's not possible, then it's probably bullshit, and you should try to do it anyway. That's what you. That's what I would tell you. Sorry.
I just got goosebumps when you said that. I was like, oh, yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's very easy to be like, because we have a culture of like influencers now. So people like try to influence. That's a full-time job. Even on Instagram, you can get paid to be an influencer. So like we're influenced all the time, but like listening to our own inner voice, that's like great advice.
You got to take a bet on what you think is right and what you think you can do.
Signal to noise ratio in Wyvern terms.
Yeah, exactly. It's signal to noise ratio. At the same time, always make sure that you do the diligence you need to convince yourself that it's possible. You know, and that doesn't come from, other people's opinions. It comes from, doing the work. It's a good thing that we got math and science, because you can prove it if you want to. Or convince yourself anyway.
Yeah. All right, Chris. So I just have one final question for you before we wrap this up. So what is the meaning of life, and why are we here?
I mean, we're here due to a lot of random chances and evolution and physics and things like that. I'm here right now because you invited me to do a podcast. I'm also here because my mother and father fell in love and produced a baby, and a variety of other things are the reasons why I'm here right now, including that I want to be here. I don't know what the cosmic meaning of life might be, but I do know that the meaning of life to me is that life can have meaning, and that I can decide what the meaning is.
That's a great answer.
It's the only one that really matters.
Yeah, no, that is true for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think the meaning of life is?
I think the meaning of life is not a question that you ask life. It's a question life asks you. And similar to your answer, it's your job is to answer that question through your life and your actions. And another thing I saw somewhere that I really like resonated with is like, what should be the question to the answer that is life? Because we're filled with answers, and our job is to like figure out the questions that brought these answers around us.
I think they did that in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, wow, that's like 42.
Well, that was the answer. They forgot the question.
It was the question. No, but that's the whole point. What is the question? I don't know. All right. That wraps up all of my questions. Do you have any final things before I stop recording?
Why do you think we're here?
I didn't have a choice. First of all, just like you said, my parents got together and I had to be here. But sometimes it also feels like everything happens for a reason. Like it's kind of romantic to believe that sometimes. So I'll just say that life is an impossibility come true, and I get to be a part of it. So that's why I'm here.
Good answer. What would you do if life was a simulation?
Well, I work on simulations all day, so could be possible. I would do nothing. I would just live and swim in my ignorance, just as I am right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, this was a really good conversation, Chris. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.